Welcome back to my channel. This is my book reviewing channel. I know I've been distant in recent weeks, but that's life and life happens. So I'm back again, and I have the pleasure today of reviewing an author called Leon McNally, and we're actually friends online. And parts of the book I'm going to discuss with you today called basically a tourist's guide to dark attractions in the UK. One of the elements in that book inspired an entryway point into a fictional story myself and collaborative creative artist Morticia Gale have been working on, called the Mystical Dagger series. So book one is already out on Amazon. It's called Race for the Ruby Sunrise, so I'll let you guys go and do your research. Just put in Race for the Ruby Sunrise on Amazon. It's sold all over the world on Amazon. And just put in Emma Bruce and you should find it. But today is all about Leon and his amazing book. So it's a little bit different and it's truly fascinating. So I'm just going to give you some background information on Leon as we go. So I'll put the link to the description of the website here when I'm done. So, and there he is. There's Leon, bless his heart. He's such a lovely guy. There he is, very talented, super talented, really knows his history on the more sinister, macabre sides of the UK's history and travelling spots that we may venture to for a bit more of a quirkier experience, you might say. So, growing up in the historic country town of Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk, this is an excerpt from Leon himself, so I'm reading it in first person. I was undoubtedly influenced by history from a young age, learning about the story of St Edmund and the gruesome Tudor period of King Henry VIII. After leaving school, I went on to take an interest in tourism, as I wished to explore and learn about the culture and history of other countries. It was while studying travel and tourism at the West Suffolk College in Bury, St Edmunds, that I first heard of the term dark tourism. I was immediately curious to find out what this phrase meant. I discovered that this term was given to places linked to death and tragedy and those who travelled to them. While in college, I learned that some individuals went to such sites to expand their knowledge on a particular event, while others visited such places to show their respect for those who had suffered. I then furthered my studies at the University of Northampton, so I went to university, well done Leon, I never made it, concentrating my work on dark tourism, learning more about why people are motivated to visit such attractions, along with understanding the ethical concerns surrounding dark tourism. And there's a quote by him here that says, "Dark tourism isn't about exploiting those who have suffered, but remembering them in the event of a similar scenario." So I don't know if you guys have ever visited a castle or a dungeon or anywhere that's like steeped in, you know, real brutality based history, you know, because castles were fortresses. They used to have the moats and the crocodiles in, and they used to have torture chambers in the bowels of castles, and used to have battlefields where people fought on horseback and all that stuff. And you've got like haunted locations like Greyfriars Cemetery, which I have visited, and I went on the ghost walk, and my ex at the time, who was my boyfriend at the time, he actually opted out to go through into the graveyard. It was pitch black, full moon, so I got the full experience. And there was a lady with her best friend, so she didn't want to go in, but her friend did. So I was like, let's partner up together and we'll be brave and we'll go through this, and then we can tell them like what happened at the end. So we did that, and it was definitely an experience. So do check Leon out. So that's the author, and that's his name there, in case you didn't catch his name. That's Leon McNally. Really good. It's such a good book. I'm just going to try and find you a picture of the cover now. So there's the cover. I can make it big. Oh, I can make it bigger. There we are. Really good. So if you're a bit stuck for maybe a staycation, and you want to, you want to take the children out, you want to take yourselves out, something a bit out of the ordinary. Maybe you're going to learn something, because one of the things that I took away from this book that blew my mind, and it was something I felt like as someone who's lived in West Sussex for all her life before moving to Spain, that I should have known about this. And it's these 8 cemeteries in London. I think they're called something along the lines of like the Magnificent Eight, and they've all got like different names, and the pictures online are incredible. And I thought, how did I not know these cemeteries existed? They're like massive, and you can like walk through them. They're kind of like a park meets a cemetery, and really beautiful architecture. You've got the stone mausoleums and the statues, and there's quite a few famous people in them as well, so you know that's something else to look out for. So that was something that really sort of grabbed my attention with this guide, that's for sure. So I've made a couple of notes here, so I'm just going to read off my notes. Yeah, so the book made me definitely think a lot more deeply than I expected on, you know, the history of Britain, because every country's got its gruesome histories to some degree, but Britain's like, you know, it's very dark in places, you know, heads on spikes and that sort of thing. So yeah, I always remember going to places on school day trips and going to castles and hearing of like all the things that used to go on to like the poor prisoners and the torture chambers and everything. And yeah, so this book really kind of lets you find your threshold for what you would possibly enjoy for a day out, definitely. So yeah, when you hear dark attractions, your mind might immediately go to things like ghost tours or spooky castles like I've just been talking about. And yeah, some of that is in the book. But McNally's book goes beyond like cheap thrills here. It's more of a kind of like gentle but honest map of Britain's shadowy past, you know, murder sites, execution grounds, plague pits, prisons, asylums, places most people wouldn't put on their holiday list. Oh, I've got somebody on the live. Hello, hi everybody. I'm doing a book review today. It's a bit of a different one. It's not a fictional story today. Today it's called A Guide to Dark Attractions in the UK. That is the book. So if you're stuck for something to do this summer and you have some free days coming up and you want to just plan a day out, maybe you can find somewhere local that you maybe haven't been to before that's quite historical, and you know you'll have a bit of experience, not just a nice day out. So what really struck me about this particular book was the tone of the book, because I have to be honest, I'm not usually one for touristy guides. I sort of like to wing it, you know, I'll go to locations and I'll plan it from there with my family or friends, which is something I've always done, or you know, have a specific place in mind, like the dungeons of London or the dungeons of Yorkshire, or you know, Edinburgh Castle, or you know, all sorts of things, kind of have an objective in mind. So this wouldn't have originally been a book that I would have picked up, but it's completely changed my outlook on these kinds of guides, and now I can say definitely, like, I'm keeping this one, and it's one of my top faves for sharing with friends and family and people I know who are in the UK right now and they're going on holiday, and if they're on holiday in a location where these areas are, I'm like, oh, do you think to check out X, Y, and Z? Each entry into the book is concise and detailed, but it's not too much information, so it's not kind of like trawling through mud. You know, sometimes you can read a guide to something and you're like, oh my god, too much information. It's like my brain, I can't absorb so much. But this is really good. The tempo and the way it's written is professional, informative, and entertaining as well. So it also gives historical context and what you can expect at each individual site. So kind of manages your expectations, not just throwing information of like, oh, visit this area because of X, Y, and Z. And then obviously there's the folklore included as well in the story, which is really cool. It also made me realise how many of these places we pass by and never knowing the stories buried there, like often literally like, hello, 8 cemeteries in London. And I didn't know. I didn't have a clue. Even my dad, who worked in London for many years, when I said, oh, have you heard of these cemeteries? And my dad was like, I've never heard of them. And I thought, that blew my mind. It did, have to be honest. I felt a bit better though as well. So as someone who talks a lot about mental health as well, because some of you know off the back of writing books, helping indie authors review and get spotlight on here, and enjoying wholeheartedly reading many books. I'm also a qualified life coach and counselling practitioner because mental health is super important to me, and it's very close to my heart over things that have happened in my life, and now things that are happening transitionally in our family, behind the scenes, hence why I haven't actually been on here, because we've had quite a bit of stuff going on backstage, you could say. So yeah, it feels good to get stuck back into this and be able to put that in as well. So you know, it is post-traumatic stress disorder awareness month, and you know, like I said, if you have some free time coming up, maybe you just want a change of scenery because maybe your mental health's been struggling, and maybe being stuck inside with your four walls and stuck with something to do, you know, you might look at something in a guide to dark attractions and think, actually, that's not too far away, it's affordable, and why not go and do a bit of exploration and have a good day out. So on the back of that, obviously, with mental health, I talk about grief and trauma as well, and it sort of goes hand in hand for me. You know, the fact that I read books as a form of escapism when life is like super closing in, and I'm like, oh my god, and I can't get out of the house. Like, I will dive into a book. I love it, and I'm also writing my own books, which is also like a mental health aid. But you know, the flip side of that is whenever I go anywhere now that is steeped in history, I don't have the child perspective of it anymore, the sort of like, I'm out for a school trip and, you know, ooh, it's so gory, and, you know, you have that kind of immature reaction, don't you, because you can't really fully gather it in your head of just what people went through. And now I find when I go to places you know, that depict where people were held or tortured or whatever, you know, you feel it on a more personal level, definitely. So this kind of prepares you as well for like whether or not it's your cup of tea or not, because the worst thing would be that you kind of plan a day out and you think, oh, there's, you know, there's a historical site here, and yeah, let's go and make a day of it, and then you come back feeling quite sad. So, you know, that could be like a precursory warning as well, this guide, to being like, actually, let's not do that one, because that's a little bit over the top for my threshold on how much I can hold in on the darkness level. So it's managing your expectations on like the darkness level of wherever it is that you might visit. And yeah, I also think whether you're into history or true crime or gothic literature, or just like exploring psychology perhaps behind why humans are drawn to places of tragedy, then this book is definitely 100% a gem, and you need it in your library today. It's not heavy reading, but there are bits of it that just, they stay with you, you know. And it's the same if you visit somewhere and there's a bit of a backstory historically, you know, that circulates on these darkened areas of conversation. You know, things do stay with us, you know, and yeah, humble. I think it humbles us, definitely. So yeah, if you're based in the UK, this might help inspire you to just take an unusual road trip, you know, have a bit of an experience, you know, what have you got to lose? And definitely the sites mentioned here will probably give you a deeper meaning than your average sightseeing tour, that's for sure. So yeah, if you like what you're hearing, I would love to know in the comments. So please comment maybe your own experiences, maybe you've been to places, maybe you can recommend places, and kind of what your takeaway from that was. I would love to know. And also, above everything else, how did these sites make you feel? So if you're sharing it, like, you know, like I went to Greyfriars Cemetery, which was terrifying. Oh my god, the ghost tour was terrifying. Holy crap. It's definitely at the high end of the ultimate jump scares, that's for sure. But it was so good. It was really good, and I enjoyed it a lot. And yeah, really felt that one. And also, what do you possibly think about this idea of confronting the darker side of our shared history? Because we've got so much of it, just so much of it. And also, if you've enjoyed this book review, please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so that you don't miss the more curious corners of the human experience. And then until next time, guys, stay kind and stay curious and be gentle with your inner world. And I shall see you on the next review. All right, guys, lots of love. Take care. Bye for now. Bye.